Welcome to the Moviegoers Society podcast, brought to you by Nerdtropolis. I'm your host, Sean Tajipour, the mayor of Nerdtropolis. And once again, joining me is my co-host, Drew Munhausen, the professional media and movie mastermind. And did you adopt a kitten? Did you go to the pound and bring an adorable little kitty home?
Actually, not kitties. They're not kittens. They may look like kittens, but they're not kittens floating behind me. If you've seen the Marvels, you know. Which actually, speaking of, not to jump ahead, Sean, there's a sequence in the Marvels where they're talking about their superhero names. And what would be your Marvel name as part of the Marvels? Would you be, you're the mayor of Nerdtropolis. Are you Mayor Marvel? Are you Nerdtropolis Marvel? What's your Marvel name?
I'll be the Spectacular Sean.
Spectacular Sean. Well, you don't fit in with the Marvels then.
Do you remember back in school, they'd be like, make a name for you, like put an adjective or something in front of your name that matches? It was like some old school kiddie task they used to give us. Maybe that's stuck in my head since then. A superhero name? I don't know. I think my superhero name is Mayor of Nerdtropolis. I think I am the
Mayor,
yeah, that's just
Professor Marvel, Captain Marvel, and Mayor Nerdtropolis Marvel, Mayor Marvel, something of the sort.
I've never thought about that. I'd rather not be a superhero. I'd rather be a manager of a superhero, I feel like.
Fair. You'd rather be the Nick Fury than be the Marvel.
Exactly. There you go. Yeah, I am more Nick Fury. Furry. I'm looking at the furry behind you.
Nick Fury is behind me. Yes,
Nick Fury is behind you. That's what we're going to go with that. But yeah, before we dive into all the good stuff in this podcast, we do dive into the world of cinema, exploring everything from beloved classics to the latest blockbusters. And yeah, now we're on episode 18, Drew, which is awesome. We're going to time slip into Loki season 2, and then we're going to take flight with the Marvel. So we got a very marvelous episode for you for that. But before we get into all of that, actually, we want to make sure you can connect with us online. You can find me on every social media platform as well as Nerdtropolis. You can find me at Shantosh and at Nerdtropolis everywhere online, and visit nerdtropolis.com for your daily dose of movie news, reviews, interviews, and trailers. And Drew, where can they find you when you're not contributing to Nerdtropolis?
Yeah, you can find me over at Drew Munhausen on all the different social media platforms, and weekly over at Fresh Out the Podcast.
Also, don't forget to catch up on past episodes. Like I said, we're on episode 18 now. So that's 17 you need to catch up on if you have not seen those yet. And also my podcast, Nerdtropolis Mayor Presents, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and our YouTube channel, where I interview directors and writers and actors. And speaking of actors, Drew, the strike is over, which is exciting. So a round of applause for that. Everything is back to normal in Hollywood.
Did you see, I don't know how legitimate the story is. Did you see I saw some tweets that David Harbour, like within minutes of the strike ending, was getting calls from the Stranger Things producers like, okay, when can you be on set? Let's get filming. So it's like, I know the Hollywood machine is ready to get back to work immediately.
It's totally true. Everyone's getting phone calls, immediately go back to work because everything just got to pause. There's no reason to spend an extra minute because you just go back to what you stopped on. Obviously, other things in development and are not further along, it's going to take some time. But things that were in middle of shooting, like Deadpool, you got Stranger Things, you had Beetlejuice 2, and a lot more. And even James Gunn was so excited that he is keeping his original July 11th, 2025 date for Superman Legacy, which is my birthday. And it's a special day for him, too, because it's his father's birthday, who passed away. Not sure when, but his late father's birthday is July 11th. And he wanted to release his ultimate, I guess, love letter to his favorite comic book character, Superman, with his film on July 11th to, commemorate his father, which is awesome. So I'm excited that that is still on track for July 11th, 2025, Superman Legacy.
As a result of the strikes, like obviously, we've still had plenty of content coming out now. We're going to start seeing the effects, I think, in the middle of 2024 with all of the productions that had been on hold that are getting delayed. They just announced this week that Captain America: New World Order, the fourth Captain America movie, and Thunderbolts got moved to 2025. So Deadpool 3 is going to be the only MCU movie releasing in theaters in 2024, which is fine. Like, that's a whole, that could take 2 more podcasts of talking about all the shifts and everything there. But it just looks like 2025 is going to be insane looking ahead with a new Superman movie, the Thunderbolts and Captain America and all these other superhero movies, because it seems like 2024 will be a little bit lighter in the superhero genre.
Which is fine because, we've got a little overload on quality or just kind of not much there, but which is exciting. Deadpool 3 will be the only MCU film to hit theaters, but we also get Echo, and I'm not sure whether other shows we're getting. I know like What If season 2 is coming soon as well. There's maybe a couple other projects not aware of, but yeah, there's two talk about series and a film today that are going to be connected to Deadpool 3. And I guess we could jump into Loki, which had its season finale. I was able to watch the first 4 episodes together early to review them, which I loved. And then a lot of time went by, and then you had the final 2 episodes, and I kind of lost track of what happened in Loki by the time episode 5 and 6 came out. So I actually did not go back to watch the first 4. I did try rewatching episode 4 at least twice. And then I tried watching episode 5 just to get everything together because they have the back flashes. They show you what happens in the previous episodes. But it's finally done, Drew. And what did you think of Loki season 2?
So just to kind of talk about my experience watching it. So I watched episode 1 a couple weeks ago now, and then, had fallen behind. I was like, I'm going to catch up. And then weeks were going by and I was getting further behind. I actually ended up doing what you had suggested, which is I ended up waiting until the day that the last episode came out. And I binged episodes 2 through 5 and was able to watch those right before the finale came on and watched the finale pretty fresh.
So before we dive into the what happens, how is that viewing experience? Because I think that's the best way with series, because I consume so much content, I just get confused and kind of try to remember what happened in previous episodes. I kind of like when they show us what happened in previous episodes and kind of give us a summary, but I was still kind of lost. And this will go into what I thought about Loki season 2, because I have some questions, Drew, that you might be able to answer, because I'm a little lost with how it ended a little bit, just because I consume so much. And so I just need a refresher since you watched 2 to 5. Was it 2? It's 6 episodes, right?
I don't know how much help I'm going to be, to be honest. I do think when you're watching it all together, there are some parts that drag on a little bit too much. I'm like, this could have been a really solid 2-hour movie. Like, I really think it could have been a Loki movie that really flowed. And instead, the 6, even though it's only 6 episodes, like sometimes they still dragged on a little bit too much for me. And sometimes the time stream talk about threads and oh gosh, pruning the different threads of the timeline and things like that, it all becomes a little bit of gobbledygook as you're like consuming it all at once. And but there was enough to keep it fresh. Like the episode that goes back to 1893, I thought was a really cool tone that was different from just being in the TVA the whole time. So like I enjoyed that. As you get how light or heavy can I go on spoilers right now? Just talking about different episodes. I'm not gonna go.
Let's just say now. I mean, we can't hold on to this anymore. This is our only opportunity to talk about it. So let's go full on spoiler warning now. This is your only warning you're getting. We're gonna go spoilers in the Marvels as well, probably so this is your only warning of this is a spoiler heavy episode of the Moviegoers Society.
I really liked some of the like finding the variants and where they were and seeing like what the variants were up to that was either in line with their current characterization as we know them in the TVA, or sometimes kind of a little bit opposite. And so I liked seeing all of that and kind of getting the gang back together. So there were a lot of elements throughout each episode that I liked. But I just thought some of the overall TVA, which the TVA was so unique and fun in the first season, in the second season, I feel like I was more interested in the things going on outside of the TVA. So whenever they were in the real world and jumping through time, I enjoyed. But I don't know. There were definitely parts of it that dragged on too long. But I thought that it ended pretty strong. I feel like I did see a lot of positive reaction to this show in general from the fandoms that I'm a part of and the groups that I follow. That being said, I'm kind of in the middle, probably overall on Loki season 2. It had a lot that I liked. It had a lot that I thought dragged on too much. I think overall I like where it ended, but it was a little bit of a slog at times to get there. The performances were good. The show looked good. It just has a lot of time travel nonsense, which is hit and miss for me. I like time travel sci-fi and movies and shows. We just talked about Back to the Future in depth a few weeks ago, and that's one of my favorites. But just I don't know, it's hit and miss for me. And there are bits of Loki that landed, and I thought bits that just went on a bit too long. So I'd say that's my overall take on Loki season 2. How about you?
I mean, I love Loki in general. I love Tom Hiddleston. I loved the first season, and I love the season as well. I'm not gonna lie, I love it. I just am a confused fan of what was going on. I loved all the performances. I love where the story was going. I thought it was going. I thought we are gonna get more of all of another variant or more of Kang's variant. It was just it's obviously Loki, but we didn't get enough of Jonathan Majors to me. Not enough. I thought we are gonna get more of him, something further that we can get. But obviously, this is a Loki series, and apparently it's a Loki farewell, which was shocking to me when I read that. That he's pretty much this is the goodbye to Loki until they can pay him to come back in a future film, most likely Avengers, which is odd because I thought all this did was open the door for more Loki. Um, but I can see how it ends, and I was just confused of what everyone's goal was. I guess everyone had different goals in this film, what they wanted to be done. People pruning, saving multiverses. I was just confused of what really is the way to save the TVA and this multiverse. Did we get an answer? What was the way? Like, and I know I'm jumping ahead to the ending of the final episode, and which was actually shot beautifully. That was really cool. I love the music, everything to it was a proper ending. But what is he doing? What are we doing with this multiverse? Is what I'm confused about. Like, what is happening? What was he doing? Was he pruning a lot and saving a lot at the same time, or was he saving all the branches? Like, I'm just confused about the branches and what's going on. Is he making it into one? I just feel dumb right now, and this is what this episode's gonna be about. Me feeling really dumb of what this does for the MCU.
I don't have the answers for you, and I watched the same finale. I guess I just don't let it make me feel that way in the same way. I'm just like, oh, it's just a bunch of nonsense anyway, so I just let it be. What you're saying though, the kind of the last Loki, the big Loki moment where he's walking and gathering the threads and his kind of classic garb is kind of starting to flow off him, and even the threads of time start to look like his cape behind, and the horns grow and everything. I thought that was like an absolutely brilliant moment.
Oh, that was a great look. Like, iconic. Love it. They even released the pop version of this already. Like, they knew this was going to be an iconic look, and that just his eyes at the end, and like kind of you get like this much of his face a little bit. It's just so awesome to end it like almost on a shot like that, which was really cool.
And there's a point in one of the episodes, I think it's when they're back in 1893, and there's kind of like an old timey looking building that's is a reference to some of the gods, like Thor and Odin and so on. And I think it's Mobius says like, oh, sometimes I forget you're one of them to Loki. And it's kind of how I felt watching the show too. I'm like, I forget that Loki is, from Asgard, and
yeah, he's got powers. So what at the TVA he doesn't have them? What was if my memory is really bad?
I think that's what it does at the beginning of the first season. I didn't rewatch the first season before the second season, and I do feel like that's addressed in the first season. But yeah, you forget that he's a god. And so then at the end, when he's back in his kind of god uniform and you see him as that, you're like, oh yeah, this is the Loki that I came to love in 30 movies of the MCU. So it was good that they kind of took it back to the roots, and Loki essentially overseeing the threads of time does feel in character for Loki. So like I'm accepting of that. But as far as the actual logistics of that and rules of it, I got nothing for you.
Yeah, the whole like machine they were building and what they were preventing, I was just so confused. They said it multiple times, but like I understand there's like an infinite amount of these branches coming through. And I guess that's the causes of a lot of stuff of killing He Who Remains, and I guess stuff we saw in like Doctor Strange and other things that have to tie into this multiverse, just creating problems. Spider-Man, maybe all of this is happening at the same time. That's what I'm trying to figure out is what is exactly going on with all these effects diving into the multiverse in these other films and the effects it really has. And I don't think Loki really addressed it for me. And that's why I'm going to keep saying I feel really dumb trying to figure out what is going on. And then also, he had to travel or time slip almost for 100 years to learn everything and figure everything out and master time slipping and mastering everything. And so I'm just curious, like, how can he go back to a place in time that got destroyed? Like, I'm trying to figure that out. Like, how can you? That's what I'm confused about. So I guess I'm not going to harp more on it, but if anyone has answers, please tweet me and just let me know. I would like some cliff notes, please, because I love the season. I just didn't get all of it, and it's going to open some really fun doors, I think, in the future.
Yeah, and like the thing is while this does kind of put a nice ending to the Loki story, he's still in a position where he could pop up from time to time in the MCU, which is great because Tom Hiddleston has been such a just constant for us in a good way, you know, from being in phase one in Thor to being the main villain of the first Avengers movie to being recurring throughout the Thor movies and getting his own series. Like we've had Loki for what, 12, 13 years almost. And yeah, you know, it's nice to see him in a place where it's kind of closed, but you know, there's room for him to appear here and then. I enjoy it. You mentioned Jonathan Majors, and you can't talk about Loki without mentioning him and his role is mainly as Victor Timely, you know, one of the Kang variants. And it's going to be interesting to see with the future of the MCU and what happens with Jonathan Majors, you know, with personal life and things going on outside of it. That being said, like, I don't think it's controversial to say that he's really good in the show. And, you know, you can't help but deny the presence when he's on screen and just the differences between the Kang that we got in Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania versus He Who Remains versus Victor Timely that are all so very different. It's really interesting. And I guess I'm under the impression that now, because of the time travels and what happened at the end of season 2 of Loki, is that Loki is essentially kind of keeping an eye on the Kang variants is what I grasp, because they do kind of reference the Kang from Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania and being stopped. So, you know, I had seen some things about Kang and where it ends up in the show, and it is a big plot point, but also I'm interested to see where that goes, I guess, in the future of what, not just of Jonathan Majors, but just Kang and how they approach that in the future.
And I'm really curious about that as well. And I feel like Quantum Media really didn't talk about that. They showed us the what do they call it? The panel of Kang. What do they call the whole group of all the Kang variants all in that room? And they didn't really elaborate much on it. And we haven't seen much of the Kang variant. So if they're going to give us a Kang Dynasty movie, is it going to show up in more stuff? Because from what I've seen in season 2 to the Kang Dynasty, there's gonna be a big gap. I feel like there needs to be something that really pushes this. I mean, maybe it's Deadpool. I don't know. I'm curious of where this is taking us. When it comes to the big bads, Thanos was the ultimate to me. And despite me loving all the performances by Jonathan Majors as Kang and loving everything they've given us so far about all the Kang variants, I don't think he's the right villain to be this big. He's too monstrous for this phase whatever, 5, 6, whatever they want to do. I feel like we could have gone more bigger. From Thanos, you got to go like to Galactus. You got to go bigger. You know, I don't think Kang is more impressive than Thanos per se. I don't know. I thought Thanos was a really great villain. They built him up really nicely and what he wanted to do and everything like that. And the reasons behind it was pretty awesome. The Kang just is getting messy, I think. It's a little messy, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, even as a comic book reader, Kang was never one of my favorite villains on the page. Like, if they were doing another Avengers Kang storyline, and I'm talking like within the past maybe 15 years worth of comics, like, I just never, I'd read some of them, but I was never really that interested. Like, I never found Kang to be that intriguing, as opposed to like a Thanos or even like a Doctor Doom or whoever was a, Avengers level villain at some point. So it's kind of like, I'm with you in the sense of like it kind of feels messy, and Kang's just not my favorite anyway. So I don't know. I just don't have much attachment to Kang.
Well, it's just weird to have him as like the main villain on Ant-Man, and then have him like the main villain of the Loki series as well, somewhat. And it's just like we didn't have Thanos kind of like popping like that. He was kind of like slowly built up, and then bam, here he comes in full force. Get ready for 2 epic movies. You have to do all that. So I'm just curious. They're giving a lot of screen time to these variants, but I'm just don't know where it's going. And that's kind of part of like the MCU not knowing, Kevin Feige slowing things down and trying to figure out where they want to take us. I guess we just dive into the Marvels now, which is to me emerges as a solid MCU film, Drew. The Marvel Cinematic Universe has been struggling the past year or so. And I felt like the Marvels, despite tons of mixed reviews and low box office, was one of the most fun Marvel films I've seen in a long time, where I didn't have to think about anything. I didn't have to question a single thing. I watched it in IMAX, and whatever unfolded in front of me, I was loving it and had so much fun in only an hour and 45 minutes, Drew. What do you think about the runtime, first of all? Let's talk about the runtime of an hour and 45 minutes.
So the runtime for me was great. I thought it flowed pretty well. And, I liked the breeziness of it. It didn't need to be any longer. So it didn't feel like it overstayed its welcome. And it didn't feel like it left more on the table that needed to be told. Like it was the right thing.
I didn't feel like it was rushed at all. It didn't really leave out much, maybe a couple of questions that I had, but I really enjoyed it. And I thought the director, Nia DaCosta, did a really good job. And she was getting a lot of flack about leaving, I guess, during editing to go do another film. But we got to remember there's tons of issues in Hollywood right now, and projects taking longer than that. So I think just a lot of drama before this movie came out was not beneficial, and especially with the SAG strike, you didn't get the actors to talk about anything. But now they can. And this was a lot of fun, Drew. I'm going to keep saying it. It's a fun movie that everyone can enjoy. You have a marvelous trio, and I love the chemistry between Captain Marvel, Monica Rambeau, and Kamala Khan, aka Miss Marvel. Which this movie, to be honest, Drew, it's not really the Marvels. It's Miss Marvel season 2 is really what it is. It pretty much picks up right after that. And it doesn't really give us enough, to be honest, of Captain Marvel and where she's been. I think that's been missing in the MCU for a long time. Is where does she go for all these years? We get some nuggets here and there. And obviously Monica Rambeau pulls up in WandaVision, and we haven't got much of her either. But it is a Miss Marvel like season 2, which is great because Iman Vellani is amazing in this, and she is the breakout star easily.
Yeah, so I'm gonna back it up a bit because we've kind of referenced this, I think, before, but there was like this big Variety article that came out recently, right, about like all the trials and tribulations of Marvel and the MCU and the problems and all that. And there were some things that were said about the Marvels and the production that were like kind of unflattering. So I went into this with my expectations probably kind of low. I had seen some critical responses, including yours, which you were very positive on it. I saw some that were pretty mixed, some that were negative, but like a lot that were also positive. So I was like, man, this is it seems like this is truly it just depends on who you are kind of thing and what you want going into this. So I went into it with like pretty tempered expectations and thought that it was just like pretty enjoyable and breezy. I didn't have to think about it too much. The overall ties to the MCU big picture are like kind of there, but not really. Like, again, you just don't have to think about it too much. And I agree though that it's like a Miss Marvel season 2. And there's a lot of narrative out there with the box office because this movie did not perform well over the weekend. I think the tracking kind of prepared us for that. I think it's might be the lowest opening weekend for an MCU movie ever. I'm not sure.
I mean, it's at 88 million global right now. They were saying 100 something earlier I saw, but I don't know where that's coming from. Based on Box Office Mojo, to 3 days, worldwide total is at 88.5 million. Maybe they're projecting a little too high because I was seeing something around the hundreds. I was like, there's no way it hit 100 something with such low numbers, because it's about 47 million domestic, 41 and a half international.
47 domestic, and Captain Marvel made 153 million domestic when it opened, which is a whole lot. So, this didn't do even a third of that, and it did half of what Taylor Swift The Eras Tour did box office wise opening. But there's an interesting thing here, because it's like you said, there are two main characters of this movie that were introduced on Disney Plus via Disney Plus TV shows. And I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily, but does it set up the movie for failure from a box office perspective? I honestly don't really think so. Like, I think you could have had, like, obviously this wouldn't be feasible based on the plot of these movies, but like, you could have Captain Marvel and you could have Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow and, Scarlet Witch here too, which are all characters that have been big picture. And like, I don't know if this would have done any better. I just think it has to do with the times and fatigue and everything else going on. I don't think you can blame the Disney Plus shows. Maybe that's being naive, but because
to be honest, Drew, I really think the bigger picture here, which is not even like MCU related, there's way too many movies coming out quickly. Like every week, a big movie coming out. I don't remember a time where it was like that. It was almost like one movie a month, two, but it's like every week there's a big movie, and people don't have the money for that. Like, that's not how you go watch a movie. Is every week you head to the theater, especially with the prices still high in the current economy right now. And I just feel like there's a movie every week to watch. And I don't know if people feel pressure to go, but now they're saying, no, thank you. We're going to wait, because I'll end up in Disney Plus at some point and end up at a streaming service. And we're paying a lot out of our pockets for all these streaming services too. So I think there's no urgency to watch these movies as they get released digitally very quickly, even on Blu-ray, and then even on a streaming service. And people are getting comfortable watching it from their homes as well.
The only thing with that is, like, in 2019, which of course is a totally different time from now, just the whole world changed in 2020, and it hasn't quite gotten, at least from a box office perspective, it really hasn't quite gotten to what it was. Looking at the 2019 box office, there were 9 movies that made over $1 billion worldwide. One of those movies made over $2 billion worldwide with Avengers Endgame. We had Avengers Endgame, The Lion King, Frozen 2, Spider-Man Far From Home, Captain Marvel, Joker, Star Wars Rise of Skywalker, Toy Story 4, Aladdin. All of those made over $1 billion. And it kind of seemed like at that time, which, now in hindsight, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of those 9 are Disney movies. The only one that's not was Joker. It kind of seemed like at that time, it was like, these movies are going to come out and they're going to make $1 billion. And then coronavirus happened, and then Disney Plus got oversaturated. And I guess just people, like, is it because people just want to watch stuff on their TVs at home or on their computers? I don't know. Like, it's where you get into all that weird gray area and the state of the box office. And this movie doing as badly as it did from a box office perspective, and from the standpoint of being an MCU movie, what's to blame for that? Like, I don't really know the answer. I don't know.
Well, I'm here to say, if you haven't seen the Marvels, go watch the Marvels. Try to watch it in IMAX. It's really great. Like, Drew, we got to talk about how fun this movie is. It's
sorry, I get really hung up on like all the box office, and
I think it's our duty as the Moviegoer Society is to get people in seats. And I feel like this movie doesn't need to be watched at home when it ends up on streaming service. You can, but this is a really fun movie to watch on the biggest screen possible. And like I said, I watched this in IMAX, and I thought this was a lot of fun. I thought visually it was awesome. There were some issues I had, maybe a couple of scenes with CGI, but that happens. But the action they gave us between the trio, like when they're popping in and out of their positions, was really fun. I thought that was difficult to pull off, and they did an amazing job just on those scenes.
I agree. I think that some of the combat, like some of the fight scenes we see here and the choreography from a team-based perspective is probably some of the best stuff we've seen in the MCU outside of some of the Avengers movies. Like the way that they end up starting, controlling their powers and switching, positions and utilizing that in fights to their advantage as opposed to it being a hindrance is impressive. Some of the action scenes with Miss Marvel in particular, we got to see some action from her in the Disney Plus show. Seeing some of the stuff she's doing here is really cool. Like I really like her power set and using light and the way that she would jump into the air and create like a pole of light and swing around it to kick a bad guy in the face. Like that stuff was really cool and I thought was super effective. And it reminds you of like how powerful Captain Marvel is in this movie. Like Captain Marvel can reignite a star. She's super powerful.
Which we find out later on that she can. But I was questioning that in the beginning. I was like, we have a lot of smart people in this whole MCU galaxy multiverse universe, and you're having issues with your star. There's a lot of people out there that can help you with that problem. Let's talk about the villain real quick. Not a memorable villain, but had a pretty good backstory. But I feel like most MCU films really don't have a memorable villain until you get into Avenger films. But that was bothering me where she had problems with her home planet star dying, and I was like, I think there's a way to fix that. But the plot's pretty cool. I kind of like it how we're popping at different planets. Very like Galactus like approaching a new planet to suck out a certain resource for my dying planet, grabbing what atmosphere, water, and I guess sun. Was that just the three elements?
Yeah, water, sun, and
the atmosphere, just air. I think it was just breathable air.
Yes.
So
yeah, I it's a pretty simple plot, but fine. Like I didn't need more than what it was. And there were some gimmicks on some of the planet hopping that like would have normally seemed reserved for a Guardians of the Galaxy movie or something, but you see it here, like a planet where the inhabitants can only speak through song and sing. Like I thought that was very funny and kind of charming. So
it was charming, and I'm glad they stopped it when they did. And it was a scene. It was a line from Captain Marvel herself. It's like, can we just stop this? Like, no more of this. Can we go to normal talking? Which I was like, oh, thank you. It's very clever and very cute. Well, I was like, I'm here for it for just a little bit, but that was fine. But yeah, so this is like a Kree and Skull plot, and I guess this happens after Secret Invasion. I couldn't figure it out. This happens after Secret Invasion, which is a whole thing of itself that didn't do very well, and that's my confusion. I feel like we're still trying to figure out the timelines here.
Worth noting, Zoe Ashton, who plays Dar-Benn, the villain, is engaged to Tom Hiddleston, who plays Loki in real life, which I thought was kind of cool.
I did not know that. That is a wonderful fun fact. That is awesome. I did not know that.
Yeah, so
and she does a really good. She does a really good job. I liked her performance, but like I said, it's not a memorable villain for the MCU. It's like a come and go villain for this kind of pocket story. But yeah, I guess is this a follow up to Secret Invasion? I need to know this because I'm very confused of Samuel L. Jackson being back in space and all this other nonsense and everything else. But apparently it takes place afterwards. And I love Samuel L. Jackson being in this. And obviously Goose is along with the ride. But I think the funnest part was Kamala Khan's family joining them up in space. And the brother, mother, and father are on board with Nick Fury and Goose. And that's a lot of fun too. So like outside the Marvels themselves, there's another story kind of happening there. And it's a lot of fun.
I'd say when we say Kamala Khan is the best part of this movie, that includes her family because they are I'd say most of the laughs that I got were from them and just their involvement in the fish out of water nature of them being here, and like the dad getting so ill when trying to get up to space to be on the space station with Nick Fury. Like all that stuff worked for me, and I thought it was very funny.
I'm gonna say this. This is the Marvel's first family, not the Fantastic Four. This is like the first authentic family we've gotten in the MCU. I love it. Her mom's so awesome in this. A lot of great lines, and so yeah, this is Marvel's first family, is what I call the Khan family, which is really great. A lot of kittens, a lot of flirkins in there.
A lot of flirkins.
A lot of flirkins. I think that's a very enjoyable scenes that they have with Goose and all the flirkin babies, and just how they used them was, I didn't see that coming. That's for sure. And I have questions about how you can survive like that.
There is, yeah, I have lots of questions there, but I think the movie doesn't answer them on purpose, and I'm fine with it. There's a scene involving all of the Flurkins with a great needle drop from a very famous Broadway musical that I thought was very funny and worked really well for the scene that involved all the Flurkins. And we haven't really talked much about Tiana Paris, who played Monica Rambeau. What did you think of her and her performance?
Oh, she's great. I have no problem with anyone's casting in this film, anyone's performance. They're all good. I mean, her Monica Rambeau, I need more of. I feel like it's a disservice that she's not like embedded into the MCU just yet. It's like she's making her slow introduction, and it's way too slow for me. But it looks like we're gonna get more. Her storyline's definitely not done. Looks like she's going to be part of a bigger storyline. We'll talk about that in a second, unless we want to go there. But I'm going to say I love this movie. It's very refreshing that this is the type of MCU film we've gotten now. I've been struggling lately with Ant-Man and Doctor Strange. I was not like a mega fan of those two movies because they're supposed to be the pinnacle of the Avengers, and they're giving us subpar movies with those big names. Now we have smaller MCU characters to me, but having really fun and fantastic films. And I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I was entertained throughout and had a great time.
I'm a little bit more middle of the road. I give it a 3 out of 5, but like that's still a positive for me. It's a net positive. And especially when I went in thinking like, oh, am I going to be the one that doesn't like this? And I'm going to have to complain about it on a podcast. I'm going to make Sean mad because he liked it. I'm not going to like it. And then, no, I thought I was charmed and I thought it was very fun. But it's also like kind of simple, which is fine. I don't mean that as a negative. I think with the state of everything in the MCU and having just watched Loki, that was just a lot of stuff. In Loki, seeing a little bit more simple story with 3 characters that I think have good chemistry and a cool power set and a story that worked, I thought was fun. So overall, I think positive. And then, like you said, I feel like normally we try to tread lightly around spoilers when we're doing our movie reviews. When you start getting into the MCU, it's a little bit more difficult, but there's an end tease of the movie and a mid-credit scene that I just feel like we can't not talk about.
They both had me excited. The end scene was very cute and funny. Drew, what was that end scene? Tell everyone watching right now or listening what it was for the end scene.
So just mega spoiler warning here. If you haven't seen the Marvels and you don't want to be spoiled on what happens at the end of the movie and in the post-credit scene, pause it here, go see the movie, come back and finish the show. You heard it from me here. Plenty of warning. Don't at me on social media. Anyways, the end scene of the movie involves Kamala Khan kind of taking on like the Nick Fury role as she infiltrates Haley Steinfeld's Hawkeye, Kate Bishop's, home, and recruits her to a team, presumably the Young Avengers. And in the scene, Kamala Khan is very funny and still being her charming self while trying to have this like aura of authority that, only comes off so much. But I liked this a lot. And sometimes when they're setting up for this future stuff, it could be kind of eye-rolly for me. I liked this scene a lot. And I liked seeing Kate Bishop back because I actually really liked the Hawkeye show. I was probably higher on it than most, and I really liked Haley Steinfeld in it. So anything more of her and knowing that she'll continue on in the MCU, I'm here for. And this was a fun setup.
It was super fun. It mimics Nick Fury going to Iron Man. It's really smart. I don't know who came up with that idea, but that was just brilliant. That was very clever nod to all of that, and just seeing her trying to be serious but really couldn't do it and kind of flopping through things. And yeah, it's great. So yeah, Young Avengers is definitely in the works, whatever you want to call them. It's going to be super exciting too. A lot of fun actresses are going to be a part of this, I think, as going forward, and a lot of fun. And then we have a mid-credit scene that I stayed quiet about until now. So the end of the Marvels, there's like a whole multiverse rift opening up, and Monica Rambeau tries to go inside to seal it up, but she can't make it back for whatever reason. There has to be some wild reason why she couldn't make it back. They try to save her and she's stuck. And then you just see her in kind of like a hospital bed somewhere, and you see these monitors, and you'll notice a little X in the corner. So that is super exciting. And I knew there was maybe some leaks about this juice, but I did not want to go. Like, I had a tingling of what it was going to be, but I didn't know who it was going to be. And there's two. So she wakes up next to her mom in this universe, who, what's her character? What's her actual character's name?
So Lashana Lynch is the actress, and she's Maria Rambeau, but here she's referred to as binary in the scene.
That's right. So she thinks it's actually her real mom, but it ends up being the variant in this universe they're in. And she's all suited up, which is awesome. But I was so happy when we heard this iconic voice that we all grew up with this voice. So this is not even related to the MCU. But you hear Dr. Fraser himself returns as Beast, which makes so much sense, especially when they show Beast. He is X-Men 90s accurate. No prosthetics on Kelsey Grammer. It's all CGI Beast properly with the squish face and everything. Like, kind of like how we grew up in the X-Men 90s animated series with that voice. And going forward, that's going to be our Beast. Voiced by Kelsey Grammer, CGI perfection.
And this is the type of thing where, okay, the scene was neat, but it just like raises so many questions for me.
Questions that will lead into Deadpool 3.
Presumably so, because first off, if this is what they're going to do in Deadpool 3, obviously we've seen the set photos leak with Hugh Jackman in like the classic gold and black and blue, Wolverine outfit that we grew up with. And then you have Kelsey Grammer reprising the role of Beast, but in CGI form, but looking comics accurate. Like, if they're going to bring back...
Just like Doctor Strange, you had also Professor X in the proper wheelchair with that X-Men
that's right.
theme too. So we've already had that as well. So a lot of X-Men, 90s X-Men coming to the MCU.
But if they're going to bring back the original actors from the X-Men movies to basically be like the X-Men 92 like classic look, in their costumes and things, I am here for that. I'm interested to see though if this is still, because I find it hard to believe that Kelsey Grammer is going to voice Beast for like the next 10 years in the MCU. Like, is that really going to happen? Is this setting up for something in Deadpool 3 to bring Deadpool into the MCU, and then they're going to like recast all these X-Men in the future and do new roles? Like, there's just still so many questions. This movie does not do anything to solve any of those. It only adds fuel to the fire. And, you see like the big classic from the X-Men movie of 2000, like you see the round X door with the X on it that just looks straight out of the movie from 2000. Like, and Beast references Charles and such. And I don't know. I just have so many, how you felt after Loki. I'm like, that's how I feel here. I have so many questions.
Well, this just has to be optimistic about Deadpool 3 and all the cameos we're going to get. Who knows what the main is it 616? I guess is this main MCU world.
Yes.
We don't know what the X-Men in 616 is, how they do that, but I can see Kelsey Grammer staying on as Beast. We're getting X-Men 97, a continuation of the 92 series coming to Disney Plus soon, and I think that's done. And we've seen.
Is that what I meant? That might be the year. Is that the series X-Men 97 or is it 92?
Well, it's the new one's 97. The original X-Men series came out in 92. They're calling this Disney Plus series 97.
Right, and the revival and continuation of X-Men the animated series is supposed to be called X-Men 97.
Well, okay, so it started in 1992 though. It ended in 97. So that's why they call it X-Men 97, because it's a continuation of the same series that takes on from the storyline that ended in 97.
There we go. And now you know.
We're getting some of that in Deadpool 3. It'll be interesting to see X-Men 97 on Disney Plus. I'm excited for that because that's really my introduction to X-Men, was that early 90s show, which is awesome. On top of, you got the Fantastic Four, you had Iron Man, you had the Spider-Man series, and you had a Hulk series. I mean, that was really my introduction to Marvel in the early 90s as like 3-4 years old. So I'm super excited. And yeah, we'll see if this really pays off. I'm really tired of these mid-credit, end-credit scenes that don't pay off. A lot of them have not paid off yet. But
I did see a meme today actually of like all the characters that have been introduced in like phase 4 and 5 now of MCU characters and in credits scenes. Like you've got Harry Styles, you've got Charlize Theron, you've got oh gosh, I'm gonna have to say Roy Kent because the actor's not coming to me, from Ted Lasso, who played Hercules.
Yeah.
And now you've got Beast, and you've got like, there's just been a lot of in credits scenes that are introducing characters that you're kind of like, are we going to see these characters again?
But this one seems to be the biggest, and this one seems more plausible because they're doing X-Men, and you're going to have Beast. He is a main member. You can't do it. And like I said, I really hope they keep Kelsey Grammer as a voice, because it's very similar to the 90s version, and his accent and everything, his dialect, everything is so perfect for Beast, and so he needs to stay on. You can definitely recast everyone else because they're actors, but if you're doing a CGI character, if you keep the voice, even better. So that's where the Marvels ends up as, and we got Deadpool 3 to look forward to next year, which is shifted a little bit from their May 4th, 2024 to July 20 something, whatever that falls on, of the same year. So not much of a delay. I think they're midway through on filming that one.
But I'm definitely glad, if we're only going to get one MCU movie next year, Deadpool 3 is going to be a really fun one to have and to look forward to. And the way that they can go all out on the marketing of that and really just focus on that coming out in July can only help that movie, because despite the slump of the box office of some of these recent MCU movies and the Marvels underperforming, I can only imagine Deadpool 3 is going to do really well.
It needs to be a $1 billion movie. That is the goal for Deadpool 3. They really need to keep a lot of these secret cameos that they have planned, like, really secret, because I think that will help the movie more than trying to say, oh, make these leaks. I don't want to see any more leaks, to be honest. I'm kind of tired of that. I like to go in a movie kind of really, really surprised and having a cheering moment, an exciting moment, instead of like, I knew this was coming. Yeah, that's what they need to do. I could see Deadpool 3 really pushing close to $1 billion if they do it right. I mean, you got Hugh Jackman back as Wolverine. That's gonna be a big money making factor. If they have another secret character they want to add to it that maybe they want to put on the billing sheet, maybe that'll come soon. Well, maybe they need to put Taylor Swift on it as the Dazzler, as everyone has been talking about, and that's how you get your $1 billion movie.
If she's in it, that's $100 million guaranteed, just from her appearance, let alone what the movie would have made without her. So yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, that is another marvelous episode of the Moviegoers Society. Make sure to check out our previous episodes of the Moviegoers Society podcast, and make sure to check out my podcast, Nerdtropolis Mayor Presents, where I interview directors and actors. Actors soon, cross my fingers as the SAG strike is over, all on the Nerdtropolis podcast network. Looking forward to more with Drew. Drew, once again, where can they find you?
Yeah, at Drew Munhausen on all the different social media platforms, and then of course over at Fresh Out the Podcast.
Thanks again for joining us for another episode of the Moviegoer Society. Once again, I'm Tajipour, the mayor of Nerdtropolis, and we will see you at the movies.